His company, Plume Labs, is building tools to inform citizens of what they breathe and empower communities to beat air pollution. He's former Silicon Valley entrepreneur, French public servant, World Bank consultant, MIT environmental economist research assistant, Fulbright scholar, and now a Webbit speaker. Please welcome, and I hope I'm going to say it in my best French, Romain Lacombe. Did I say it well?
Yes, yes you did.
Great meeting you. Welcome on stage,
very
Roman.
Thank you so much, and thanks a lot for having me.
This is the clicker.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, everyone. We talked about smarter cities, and of course the talks we just heard are very inspiring because they show just how positive technology can be for all of us. Now there's unfortunately one darker side to technology, and industrial development, and that is the impact it has on our environment. Now, I'm an optimist by nature, as probably most of us, and so I hope technology will eventually also be a solution to these issues. But it won't be if we don't realize the scale of the problem. Now, most of us have heard of climate change. We know the magnitude of the challenge at hand, but what we don't know is that climate change is not only a threat for our future, the future of our children, the future of our oceans, our cities, it actually is a threat to our health today. Because the pollutant emissions that cars, traffic, industry emit in the heart of our cities are actually the leading avoidable cause of death. There's 8.5 million people, and that's according to the World Health Organization. These are scientific numbers that are vetted, estimated. 8.5 million people who die every year because of the air we breathe. And 500,000 of these people are in Europe. So this is not just about China, India. We hear of air pollution there. This is an issue for all of us. Now that's a shame. I think we can all agree on this. But if we think of the power of technology to transform cities into smarter networks, smarter urban areas, then we can also leverage technology to make it cleaner. And that's what we're trying to do at Plume Labs. The reason why pollution kills is because people don't understand it. It's complicated. The chemistry of it is actually a real research issue. People don't fully understand how it changes hour by hour, street by street. It is also a problem to which we don't have simple, identifiable solutions. When it's raining out there, you take your umbrella, you know what to do. But most of us don't know how they can improve the quality of the air they breathe at home, at work, in transportation around the city. And this is where technology can come into play. Because thanks to the power of open data, thanks to the rise of the Internet of Things, we now have the tools to make the air we breathe much more transparent, and to learn what we can do to avoid exposure to harmful pollutants. That's what Plume Labs is building. We try to bring environmental sensing from the world of mainframes, so to speak, the way we measure pollution today with a few sensors around the streets of a city. Usually huge machines, very, very costly to operate, costly to buy, of course, absolutely not mobile. You see the size of one of them up there. And we try to bring them into the 21st century by building a personal wearable device that tracks what you breathe, wherever you are, and an app that takes this data and tells you exactly, by learning from your patterns, from your behavior, what it is that you can do to avoid it. So far, our first product, this mobile application that uses open data from 42 countries at this point, a network of about 10,000 stations that are operated by various government agencies around the world, has helped hundreds of thousands of people. Even in the past 6 months, we launched back in September around the world, to track how pollution changes in their city and how the quality of their environment impacts their health, and most importantly, what they can do to avoid pollution peaks. And thanks to this data, but also the forecasting algorithms we built, we're able to tell you, look, you should probably wait for tomorrow morning because pollution will be better if you want to go for a jog. Or now might be a good time to get your kids out because pollution is going to be way worse tomorrow. And that might seem quite simple, but it already changes a lot the way we relate to pollution. And one example of the power of transparency is the curve right behind me. This is the graph of the level of particulate matter PM 2.5. That might mean something for some of you, but let's just say the level of smog in Paris back in March last year. And this is the average pollution level in Beijing. So as you can see, on March 20th, Paris was becoming more polluted than Beijing. When we saw this, at first we couldn't believe it. But then we decided to tweet it. We had to share this news. And what ensued was complete craziness. First of all, the Air Quality Board in Paris saw this and told everyone, oh, this can't be true. They're certainly lying. This is a new startup. We can't trust them. Don't listen to them. And then people started realizing that, yes, it was very polluted because the Eiffel Tower had just disappeared. You couldn't see it from around Paris. It was behind a blanket of smog. And so from that tweet, we got invited to radio shows, to TV shows. We ended up on national press, and the government was pressed by citizens who embraced what the data was showing to actually cut half the cars from the road in Paris. So that's real impact. But the sad part of the story is this is when the decision was made, and this is when it was enforced. Way too late. Way too late because the government is not equipped to react to changes in our environment, just like citizens can be today with access to the latest technologies. And so that's why, to beat air pollution, the only way we'll be able to do it is not by relying on our representatives or on our administration or our bureaucracy. It will be by relying on ourselves, collectively. And that's why we flew pigeons over London. Now, if you let me explain why, we fitted these little backpacks that you can see with pollution sensors. It was not as an experiment in aviary science, but the idea was to say, if we are to solve pollution, then we need to make people realize just how much of an issue it is in their day-to-day lives. But if you're like me, you'd rather not hear about pollution. It's something quite negative. You don't know exactly what it does to you, to your children, to your loved ones, and you have no idea what you can do to beat it. So in order to reach citizens, we needed to have a message. And what better way to carry a message than the old-fashioned, pre-technology way, a carrier pigeon. So we worked with Twitter London, Twitter UK to be precise, to fit these little tiny sensors we'd built for our own wearables onto the back of these pigeons, and we flew them over London. There was a dedicated Twitter account, the Pigeon Air Patrol. People could tweet it. It would send back a tweet with the pollution level in their location, and for 3 days, we got the most amazing coverage I've ever seen. So we managed, thanks to these little pigeons, to have everyone talking about air pollution, what it means, and what we can do about it. And we ended up on CNN. Now, why this matters is not only because we carried this message across and around the world, but because it helped us actually gather more than 100 volunteers in London through a crowdfunding campaign who helped us finance the creation of 100 prototypes of our personal sensors. And we'll work with them, as well as Imperial College London, a university that specializes, their Center for Environmental Policy specializes on these new ways of improving public health through technology. And we'll work with them to crowdsource air pollution around London. So this is just like the sort of open data innovation we just heard about, except that here, citizens themselves also generate the data. And this virtuous loop between citizens and governments mean that because they're more informed, because we will all be more informed, we'll be able to demand much better action from our leaders. And that is how we will build the smarter, the cleaner city, thanks to technology. Now, as a conclusion, there are 3 things that make me extremely hopeful about this. I've shared our views on the tremendous crisis that air pollution is, but I also think that we are on the brink of solving it. And there are 3 major technological trends that will get us there. The first one is autonomous driving. Now, that's not an obvious one. Some people argue that autonomous driving might actually make things worse because you could wait for your car, have it drive around, and pollute as it waits for you and then comes and pick you up. But autonomous driving also unleashes the possibility of not owning a car at all. What people are now doing by using companies and fleets like Uber could be done in a much more cost-effective way tomorrow, if we are all able to share the little pods and do transportation just the way we transport packets on the internet. There are amazing, amazing opportunities to build much smarter transport networks thanks to these technologies, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of it. The second one is the collaborative economy. And as consumers have gotten used now to direct access to resources they don't need to own anymore, just like the Airbnb you might be renting out here, or the cars that people are now sharing, we will more generally become adept at sharing the city and its resources. And that means we will be much better husbands of these resources. And that is, of course, good news for sustainable development.
Thank you so much.
And the final point was how urban tech and
Please
disruption
do
can
it
help
quickly
us.
because
Exactly.
we're all going to be late.
Exactly. No, that was my conclusion. So thank you very much. I believe we're living a great disruption at the moment, and it will make our cities better. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks for listening to me. Merci.